Hi, this is Peter Godinez, your host for Your Pivot Journey. And it's been a while. We took a little break, but we started off with somebody who I have admired for years, ever since I met him at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo on the track and field team. And that's my good friend and brother, Danny Aldridge. And so, with that, I would like to introduce you to Danny. So, Danny, tell us a little bit about how your journey began, because it's a fascinating one, Danny.
Thanks, Pete. You know, I grew up in Petaluma, moved there when I was 3, took a train all the way from Michigan with my mom, who was pregnant at the time with my little brother, who decided that we needed to get away from a kind of an abusive father. And so that bravery from a woman to go off by herself, haul 2 kids across the country and settle up in a different place portrayed what my mom was really about. She was, you know, somebody who I admired, always will admire, and taught me a lot of my values. We grew up fairly poor, but at the time I didn't know we were poor because she wouldn't let me believe that we were poor. She worked 3 jobs, gave us everything that we needed to get through childhood, and never had a negative thing to say. She was just such a positive individual, and that positivity went a long way with me. I think that's what carried me through a lot of times where you might get down and you might not be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but you know what, I could draw on what my mom would say in troubled times and pull me out of a hole. So, I owe a lot of my upbringing and the way I grew up through my mom's values. And so I never missed not having a father with her. She was like my mom and my father. She was both. I think what I replaced with not having a father was, though, a lot of male coaches that I had that I looked up to. And I'll touch on that a little bit later and maybe mention a few names with the coaches that I had. But, I grew up, again, like with a lot of positivity in my life. I was one of what we call latchy kids back then, no babysitters, out on your own a lot. So I learned to keep myself entertained, be a good brother to my younger brother, because he needed that as well, and learn to fend for myself a little bit, just because that's what was called for. So my days were spent out on a playground playing, going to the recreational parks where there were people that could kind of like babysit me, and just be outdoors constantly, learning to get along with people, learning to count on friends. It was a great childhood for me. I learned, respect, how to respect your elders, and it was all because of what my mom taught me and the upbringing she was demanding on me. So that was my start, and I was very active. I learned a lot of sports. I played everything that I could possibly play, usually playing with older guys, older kids. I was like a 7-year-old that would be playing with the 9 and 10 and 11-year-olds, learned how to take a whipping early and get up, brush myself off, get back out there and just keep trying, which served me well throughout life. So that's kind of where I started. I did the typical Cub Scout stuff, Little League, played soccer, played tennis. I remember spending hours when I had nothing to do and there was nobody around. I would take a tennis racket and a tennis ball, and I lived right across the street from the high school, and I would just go over and hit against the wall, hit against the wall, hit against the wall, just because I like to get out, one thing, but I like to be good at what I was doing. And the only way to get good at something was to practice and practice and practice. not when you just had people around, but when you had nobody around. There's a story that is going around that, it's a true story. When my coach, ended up being my high school cross country and track coach, once saw me out on a basketball court, and he was inside his office, and the window faced the outdoor basketball courts. And there was this little kid shooting baskets, and every time I shot a basket, before I could shoot another basket, I would run a pro sprint. And this was with nobody around, just nobody around. And that's I believed in hard work, and I guess it was fun to me to run, and that's just what I did. So yeah, so childhood was great, even though, again, like I said earlier, not a lot of wealth there. We moved around a lot from places to places where my mom could find better rents. But you know what? Again, I didn't know any better, and I didn't feel like I was ever on the poor side of anything, because she provided clothes, food, and made it so that we could get out there and just be kids and play, and never had to really think about getting jobs. Although we would help her on a Sunday morning do office work where she had to go in and clean offices for extra money and stuff. But yeah, I had a great childhood.
When was it when you finally realized, you know what? I'm really fast, and I can run fast for a long time. And, my memories of you was just that incredible superpower you had to be able to run fast and long. When did you all of a sudden realize that maybe I'll give up the box hockey, the baseball, all that type of stuff to pick up where I met you?
Well, that's an interesting story, because as I said, I really loved sports. I mean, I thought, when I was little, I was going to be a baseball player. I played Little League and made All-Stars in Little League, both in 11 and 12-year-old All-Stars. And I was doing pretty well going on that track. And then when I really knew I was kind of fast, more than just the average guy, is when I started playing touch football with the older guys. And they would put me out at wide receiver and just always say, go long, and I could usually outrun everybody and get a long ball thrown to me. So that was the first indication that I was kind of fast. But as far as running fast, as in like track and field, was I went out for track in 7th grade. That was the first time I did organized track. That was the very first time I ever ran it. And I was fast enough to be like on the 100. They were going to make me a 100-meter runner and a long jumper. 100 long jumper, and I had pretty decent speed for that age and stuff. But then the coach at the time says everybody has to run a lap around the block, which is about a mile around this block of the school, and even the sprinters, everybody's got to run it. So I took off running it, and I came back, and I was like 2 minutes ahead of everybody else. And he goes, you are no longer a sprinter, you're going to be a distance runner. So that was the first inkling that I had some potential to be, I guess, a runner down the road and follow that path. Although I wasn't convinced at that time yet. I was not convinced, because I didn't go out for track in 8th or 9th grade. And this is when you find out like how much a coach can actually change your decisions on whether you like or dislike a sport. And this coach I had wasn't doing the things that made me motivated to keep going and running. So I just chose other sports where I would play basketball, and actually played football one year, and I played baseball in 9th grade, and didn't rejoin running until the 10th grade.
What high school did you go to, Danny?
I went to Petaluma High School.
That's right. The famous, what is it? American Graffiti was actually shot there.
Exactly. American Graffiti. Matter of fact, my ex-Cal Poly good friend, Stan Hawkerson, who went to Cal Poly. Dog was in that movie as one of the dogs that walked by the house.
So we need to get some kind of photo. I'm not sure that dog is still around, but I do remember Stan. So you went from Petaluma High School, and I believe to a community junior college, if I can call that, which was what?
It was Santa Rosa Junior College, but actually, so here's another path that that I took that you know, because of finances, I didn't even realize I was going to take that path. But when I was in high school, and I all of a sudden ran really fast my senior year. Before that, I wasn't going to college. I was going to go be work on a dairy farm. That's what I wanted to be. Those are my type of people. You know, Petaluma was dairy, chicken, famous for you know, cows and chickens, and actually world wrestling capital of the world at one time. But so it wasn't until I ran 149, which was about 3 weeks from the end of the season, that I finally got a full ride scholarship to a college. And I couldn't afford to go to college before that. And I wasn't interested in the JC at the time. So I was going to actually go straight to just work. But then when I ran 149, I actually, before the JC, got a full ride scholarship to USC. And that's where I ended up going to school, because they came up with the money to give me, you know, to get me to school. And then I went to the JC. But there's another situation where coaching makes a difference. I was at USC, ran well, got fourth in the Pac. What were you, the Pac 8 back then? I think the Pac 8 or Pac 10. I remember. That's where my memory is. But in the 1500, made it to the NC2A national championships. And we won a national championship. Actually, I was on a national championship team at USC. But the coaching wasn't conducive to my beliefs and you know, what I wanted, and so I left after 1 year and then went to the JC.
That's great. So after USC, that's when you went to.
That's when I went back to the JC for a year, because at that time, if you wanted to go to another Division I school, which I didn't know where I wanted to go at that point. I was actually kind of disenchanted with the whole track after my USC experience. Mm-hmm. But I went to the JC, great coach there, a guy named Pat Ryan, you know, said, hey, just come here, do a year, and just figure out life. Mm-hmm. And he was a really one of those big father figures that I started looking up to. And he really changed my life in the direction back to enjoying running. You know, I mean, and that's the way I function the best, is I got to love something to really do well at it. And I loved almost everything I ever did in life until that USC experience. And it just really soured me a little bit. But Pat Ryan was a father figure and brought me along slowly and brought the fun back into it. And then I just kept climbing back up the ladder.
Yeah, so my curiosity, it's like I'm trying to hold back, but so after Santa Rosa Community College, was that then when you all said and discovered Cal Poly? Was that the
Yeah.
for you?
Yeah, and that was because of Stan Hawkerson. He came back to Santa Rosa, and I didn't have a car at that time. And he said, hey, let me drive you down to Cal Poly to meet Steve Miller, who had just, I think he was in his second year there, maybe third. And just tell me what you think of the guy. And you know, I said, well, it's a Division II school. I'm not sure I want to go to Division II school. I have all these Division I schools calling me, you know, because I had won the JC state meet and I was running, you know, really fast times at the JC, had the fastest time in the country in the 1500 for a JC runner that year. And so I had like Kansas and, you know, Villanova and all these schools. But he took me down there. I met Miller, and within 5 minutes, I knew I was going there. I walked out of Miller's office after about a 45-minute talk, and I told Stan, I don't need to look anyplace else. This is where I'm coming. And again, it was the things that he said, the things that he believed aligned with what I believed. And just went from there. And that's why I went there. It's the only reason I went. If Stan Hawkerson hadn't drove me down there on that weekend, I would have never gone to Cal Poly.
Isn't that amazing? And even if we have just an audience of one, Danny, I know you'll watch it, but Coach Miller is going to watch this. So I got to ask, what were those magic words that he used on you? That power, Danny Aldridge, you will come to Cal Poly. No, what did he actually say? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I know exactly what the words that did it.
Talk to me.
So yeah, so what happened is I went in there, I sat down, and I started telling him some of the concerns I had about, being able to go to the meets I need to get to if I run fast. And he said, listen, I can take you to any meet that the big schools can take you, but I'm only going to take you if you can run fast enough to go to those meets. And I said, perfect. It's on me, right? He goes, yep. If you get fast enough, I'll take you. And I said, okay. And that's one thing I always had in myself was confidence that, if I do the work that I will, hit the times I want to hit or have the results, that I want. So I like that. I like that he was putting it on me and, and just, letting me be me, and he would support me in every way, motivate me the way I need to be motivated. And we went from there.
Now, I remember Stan was instrumental in getting there, but take a moment and just, if you want to talk about some of the cast of characters, that you met along the way, that maybe you want to do a little shout out in this interview. Can you give us an idea of some of the people who you trained with that had an influence on you, especially in the distance running team? That was being on that team was pretty instrumental. I mean, it was involved in cross country, track and field. But who are some people you think you'd like to give a shout out that had a real positive impact?
Yeah, well, there's so many of you guys, including you. It was from the decathletes to the pole vaulters to the long jumpers to the hurdlers, just the work ethic that was there and the enjoyment and the love for the sport that was there was so inspirational to me. But I mean, I hung out with the Chicago boys a lot, Bauer and Small and Capriati, on the distance side there. And, we would just laugh for hours. I mean, it was so enjoyable to be around people that you could trust, that had a passion for not just running, but had a passion for life. I mean, we would go to the beach together, dances together, again, laugh for hours. I mean, and that's something that I've always had in my life is a good laugh is better than anything you can ever have. And then these guys like Bart Williams, can you believe the guy would warm up in army boots, and then go kick people's butts. And I know people were saying, this guy's warming up in army boots, he's crazy. But he wasn't crazy. He was confident that he knew what he needed to do to run well. And I always had that confidence. I knew what I needed to do to run well. Just direct me and let me have a little bit of space and I'll do okay. And he was the same way. And Roland Joe Sai, the great 100-meter runner for his hurdler. Gosh, his smile was so infectious. It was unbelievable. Every time I walked away from a track and after seeing him smile, I would smile for hours just because I was thinking of what, his smile brought, it was just something. There was Dave Albritton and the throwers. Their group was special. They had their little special thing going on. You could see it going on. Tim McDonald in the pole vault, Reyes in the pole vault. It was just these guys just were so, not just special athletes, but they were special guys. You could tell they just cared for not just their event, but they cared for everybody out there. And we all cared for each other. We really did. At least I felt it. I felt it was a true family. It's funny because I got, inducted into the Cal Poly Hall of Fame, and it wasn't really anything I ever wanted to go there to be inducted into the Cal Poly Hall of Fame. I could care less if I got into the Cal Poly Hall of Fame, to tell you the truth. The only thing when I left Cal Poly is I had just hoped that all my teammates knew that how much I cared about them. It really was. It was just like, you know what? If I walk away from here and they know that I put it out there every day, every race for them, then that's all I cared about. And this other stuff, medals and all that stuff, I never cared about that. I cared about love, fun, respect, and let's go, do a job and have some fun along the way. That's what it was about for me.
What's surprising is the mutual admiration. I'll use the word admiration that we had for each other. And, you honored me by acknowledging me, but gosh, Danny, it was like I was almost like practicing idol worship when you got around this. You're Danny Aldridge, look what you've done. And also you're not going to talk about how great a dancer you are. Cause I remember one time you came back on a plane, it was a little bumpy, but man, when you got to that party, it was like Danny Aldridge doing the long distance shuffle, so
it was like the Staying Alive era, Staying Alive.
It's a chance to move around. No, those are the things I'm trying to capture in these interviews, Danny, is there is something really magic about our connection and knowing that here we are in the year 2020, and I want to make sure this magic of what we experience is being broadcast and shared with present generations. And generations, Danny, when you and I are fooling around in paradise, the people are still remembering this group of people from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo and the unique offering, they brought to the table. So, with that,
can I start, before I forget this, I got to make a big shout out to, I had the two greatest roommates in John Capriati and Manny Bautista in the world. I mean, if you're talking about laughter and having fun and respect for each other, brotherhood, I mean, those two guys that, I wish I had 10 more years with those guys at college.
There are so many people we can reference. When you think about it, we had 50 people on that Zoom call. And that's not something that happens all the time where you can get 50 people. And there were another 50 people who could make it. And it just kind of shows you the force and the magic that took place. But Danny, if you had to say what you would want to communicate to the audience in terms of how you're living your life now and how you're going to live the rest of your life out, what would you give to our audience here?
I think if you can, leave this life with knowing that you pretty much gave yourself a chance to be successful in the fact that you respected people, you went out and truly, loved people, cared for people, somehow tried to make a difference in some way that you can touch somebody's life. It's life's short, right? I mean, be happy, get out there and touch someone, keep contact with as many friends as you can. I know I haven't done a great job as I would like, but that's something that you should really make sure that you always keep contact with loved ones and friends and stuff like that. And I just again love the time I had at Cal Poly. I don't know if I can recreate that in my life. It was an amazing time, but I don't know. It's just, you just gotta be yourself and have confidence and respect in what you do, and you'll be fine.
And I want to thank you for the time that you gave to this interview, so people can find out a little bit about Danny Aldridge. You know, I think a lot of people know who you are, but maybe they're surprised by some of the key nuggets that you shared in this interview. So, with that, Danny, thank you very much. And for those of you watching, we hope you'll pass this interview on to people who you trust and you love, because there are some really great things that Danny said. So, with that, I will say goodbye. Again, Peter Godinez, your host of Your Pivot Journey. Goodbye.
All right.